When anxiety sets in, I have several regular and reliable tools in my arsenal, such as getting out in nature and sampling all she has to offer. Moving my body in general always helps, as does a freshly made bed in the morning, which may seem inconsequential, but is actually a big deal. Enjoying a hand-crafted beverage like coffee or tea. Preparing and cooking nutritious meals from scratch. Indulging in some things that just smell good, like incense. And wiping down surfaces in absolutely exquisitely beautiful floral hydrosols. And saving a little for me. In the past few weeks, I've noticed my anxiety levels increasing slowly but surely. And part of that has to do with the upcoming school year. We're about ready to get started, and I always have a little bit of apprehension during this time. But this year is different because it is the first year I will be going back to school without my son. My son both turned 18 and graduated high school in June, and he is now in San Diego at basic training for the Marine Corps. He's been gone almost 2 weeks. He will be gone a total of 13 weeks. And he is my only child, and I am a single parent, and I have raised him on my own since the beginning. And I'm having a bit of, I guess, what they call the empty nest experience. I've also been reading a bit about reverse seasonal affective disorder, which I had no idea was a thing. It's where you experience symptoms of seasonal anxiety, but instead of in the winter, it's in the summer. And I've mentioned in other videos how my summer anxiety is absolutely real this year, and I just can't help but wonder if that is something that I'm actually experiencing. It's fascinating, and I am looking into it more. In addition to the practices that I have already mentioned, one tool in my arsenal that has been, I suppose, both a surprising and not surprising ally, especially lately, has been my everyday carry, which is currently my Olive Traveler's notebook. This is what I would call, I suppose, my planner. I've been in Traveler's notebooks off and on, mostly on, since 2015. 2015 is when I bought my beloved brown that I love so much. I switched into this cover for spring, and I was in it all of spring, and I've been in it for all of summer. I'm just really digging the way my basil plant smells, and so I'm just moving it a little bit closer so I can enjoy that while I film this video. I think it's safe to say that anxiety and overwhelm often go together. So something that I have been really putting my awareness and attention on lately is the importance of simplified systems. And that is where my little field notes supplement comes in. I first was exposed to field notes just after Traveler's Notebooks, maybe a few months after. And they kind of captivated my attention. They have a really great aesthetic, and the company is really cool, and just the way they produce their notebooks and the stories and everything is just really fascinating. But what I love about field notes, and actually pocket-sized notebooks in general, is their portability. And I love this for just being able to take with me. If I don't want to take my traveler's notebook around with me, I don't have to. I can just use my field notes. And what I'm primarily using it for now is it's like essentially a catch-all. Some might call it a brain dump. In bullet journal speak, it would be maybe a rapid log. And getting things done, it would be perhaps an inbox. But I both capture and process in this, and I will get into that in just a little bit. But field notes for me, it works, and I resist it all the time just because I always feel like I need a more elaborate system. And in the end, I actually don't. And here is another one that I was in 2020, quite a while ago, when the pandemic set in and I was feeling anxious. I went right to my field notes because it's streamlined and simple and it works for me. I like the idea of having a notebook that is smaller than my standard size for things like brain dumping or rapid logging, just because of that portability factor. And they call them pocketbooks for a reason, and those actually do fit rather nicely in my back jeans pocket, so I can take that to work with me. And if I'm going around talking to teachers or talking to kids about a variety of topics and I feel like I just want to jot something down, I can just take that out of my pocket and make a note for later and then process it when I am ready to do that. I've said it before in other videos that my monthly insert, my dated monthly on 2 pages, is the driver of my system. It's my life manager. It is that big picture perspective that is an absolute necessity for me. But when I really need to simplify, it is the field notes that helps me handle a lot of the day-to-day. Since I mentioned my monthly, and I've said I would in other videos, I will give you a quick tour of the calendar part. The lists I'm not going to show for now just because they are pretty private at this point. On the left there is a little list that my son left me before he left for basic training, and I just keep it in this pocket because it's in his handwriting and it just makes me happy to look at it. On the right, I keep the 2023 passport size writing board, which I absolutely adore and bought even though I don't use passport size, but I like to keep that around because every once in a while I just like to slap a sticky note such as that orange one that you see there. I just will make if I want to keep things really simple, I will just make myself a daily list, just a list for that day, or maybe even just part of the day. I will write it out. I will write down whatever date specific obligations I have, and then maybe just a couple of extras. If I don't want to look at anything else, I will make a daily list and slap it on that writing board. That small yellow sticky underneath the orange one was a little list of things that I am either low on or that I need to replace. This is the inside of my monthly. I have my tarot card of the year, which is the Hangman. And I also have this extra Empress card I got from Dead on Paper that is just something I love, and I like to keep it tucked in there, particularly this year since I had a personal year 3 this year, and the Empress is Arcana number 3. Here is the typical year at a glance that Travelers Company puts in their dated inserts. I did highlight a couple of things, and they will always offer the current year as well as the next year. So on the left is 2023 and on the right is 2024. This is the travel plan spread, where it's essentially the whole year with little spaces for each day, but I use this as a cycle tracker. And in my Coletto, I have a pink refill that I use to mark my bleed days. And then I draw a line on that just to make it visually stand out. And then I use my blue-black to jot in the moon phases and then the rest of my cycle. And I have started lining my mid-cycle days just because I'm tweaking some things nutritionally wise, and so I just want to have that kind of as a visual. So I do utilize this spread a lot. This was December's spread for 2022. Travelers Company always offers December of the previous year and January for the following year. And this is a hodgepodge hybridized spread from what I wanted to see if I could plan seasonally. And I determined for this particular use that just didn't work, but I do that elsewhere. So I did on the top portion cover that part of the month with just blank MD grid paper, and I made some sort of year ahead notes in that upper part. And on the right here, I have an Alistair method kind of set up for things that are due, like infrequent bills or renewals, things like that. I just have the first 6 months on the top there and the last 6 months on the bottom, just for like things like streaming subscriptions or when vehicle registrations are due, or like insurance that we pay every 6 months. Just things that happen semi-regularly, but not all the time. And it's just nice to have that quick shortcut visual for when those things are up and coming. And here we start the months. You may notice the dots. I make good use of those colored dots that come with the customized sticker set that Travelers Company offers every year. There are 5 colors and I have a use for each one. Green is my personal, orange is my son's personal, blue is for work, yellow is for holidays or special observance days, and pink is for my cat. So I make good use of those dots. Visual is where it's at for me for a lot of things, and those just really help. This is June spread, and this is where things really kind of started to fundamentally shift for me. And I'm pointing to the washi tape. This is extremely functional. It's very minimal as far as anything decorative, but I sort of use the tape a lot of the time to tie into the function. So if something is happening over several days, I will just tape the days, and then I will make a little key sort of legend kind of in the bottom notes, and I'll put a strip of the tape and I will note what that is for. So at the beginning of the year, I really didn't do that. But starting in April, when we had spring break, I started to use the tape hack. And again, it's a shortcut visual. It's something my eye just goes directly to, and it kind of gives me that indicator. What you see now is July, and July is where I started implementing my 10-day sticky note, and this has been an absolute game changer for me. And it made me realize why weekly planning has never worked for me. It's because I don't conceptualize my months in weeks. I conceptualize them in thirds: early month, mid-month, late month. And I can condense each of those time periods down onto a single sticky note. Again, it is an option. When anxiety is rearing its ugly head, it's just nice to have options. If I want to get into my monthly and look at the whole thing, I absolutely can. If I just want to work out of my field notes, I can do that. If I want a daily list on a sticky note on a writing board, I can do that. If I just want my 10-day sticky note of just my bare bones obligations, I can have that. And what I'm pointing at there is the covered calendar. So if you're familiar with the dated monthly, you know on the right there, Travelers Company puts a whole strip of monthly calendars, and I experimented by covering that strip with some blank, or actually gridded MD paper. And I'm still not entirely sure, and there's August, and I really haven't used it a whole lot, so I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with that little shortcut, but it's an option. Again, options are good. And here is a closer look at my 10-day sticky note. This is late August. This is 10 days, or in the case of the end of the month, it could be 8, 9, 10, or 11 days, depending on the month and whether or not we're in a leap year. This sticky note is a condensed, bare bones version of my obligations for that particular period. Underneath there was mid-August, and underneath that was early August. If my energetic tolerance is low on a particular day, I can just look at this sticky note right here and go down, find the day, go down. So for example, for today, I have a circle, an open circle under tech project. I go to work and work on my tech project. I have to mail bill checks, and then I have a chiropractor appointment at 4:30. Those three things are my, at minimum, what I have to do today. At the bottom there, I also noted that today is the day I need to take my B complex. Alistair method is amazing because it can serve as both an agenda, a schedule, and a tracker. I also note the moon phases and my cycle there as well. Now we'll take a look at my field notes. This is the most unfussy, simple thing really in the world. This is not decorative or artistic in any way. It is purely functional. I jumped back into this wholeheartedly in July of this year, and if we turn pages back previous, we see dates of 2022, and then there are other random things in there, like a horribly drawn Celtic cross tarot spread, and then just other miscellaneous things, like a backlog from goodness knows when. Yeah, March 2022. So this is a great example of how this is a tool that I know works for me, but I abandon it because I think I need something more, and I absolutely do not. So when I go to fill this out, if it's a new month, I will note the month at the top, and then I also write it small at the bottom, just so when I turn the page and I don't see that big monthly title, I know what month I'm in. And then I will just draw a couple of lines and note the date. And then the key to this whole thing and how it works for me is margins. I draw myself margin lines, and I will make various notations within that margin. This is not obligatory. I do not have to come into this every day, and I often have days where I do not. But if you look at Thursday the 24th, I had so much stuff going on in my head, and like the equivalent of a page in this book, and I just needed to get it all down. For the most part, my field notes is full of stuff that is not time or date specific. Sometimes there are things that are related to specifics, particularly if it's something I need to put on my calendar or put on my sticky note or get in my agenda somewhere. I will note that I need to put it there, because if I stop at that moment and do it, I lose my flow. And flow for me is everything. I have to kind of stay in that state. So I will just note that I need to schedule such and such, and then I will move on. So if we look at the current spread that I'm on, what I'm doing right now is scanning through items, because I know I have one outstanding, and there it is, chicken soup. I did finish the chicken soup, so I wanted that marked off. When I go down my list of items, if I'm ready to at least make some headway on it, I will put a dot next to it, and that shows that I have activated that item. And in the next grid space over, I will mark the day that I activated it, and then in the third space, the space over to the left from that, I will mark the day I finished it. So this is kind of where like the bullet journal style rapid logging sort of comes into play. These aren't necessarily items you intend to do on that particular day, but that is the day that you captured them. And so it can kind of help you remember when that went in. So that's already done. And then my notations are a dot if I'm going to activate that item. And then I will mark the date that I activated it, and then the date that I finished it. And then there's one grid space over from there. There's 4 grid spaces in the margin altogether. And if I need to make a special notation, like an exclamation mark, because it turned into something urgent and I need to schedule it, something I need to research, I will put a question mark. Or if it's just something I want to remember, to put in my list of things that happened or wherever, I will just put an asterisk, and that's a note. here I am just drawing the lines for a new day. So I'm filming this on the 25th. So yesterday, the 24th, is that huge, gigantic, long list of items. And I really only have one that I can think of right now for today. And that might be the only item in there for today. And that's totally fine. Like I said, this is not obligatory. This is a convenience for me. This is me being able to unload all the things and move on with my life. So here I am marking today's date, Friday, the 25th. And I took cash out of the bank for my chiropractor appointment for my copay, and I stuck it in a drawer, and I need to remember to grab that cash out of the drawer. And that is somewhat, I'm activating that now because it needs to be done. So I'm activating it on the 25th. And when I get through all of that, I will note that it was completed on the 25th. And so that very well might be the only item I have for today, but again, it's fine. That's what this is for. It is a log as you go kind of thing. In like getting things done speak, that this field notes for me acts as a capture or inbox. It's where all my things go, but it also sort of functions as my next actions list because I process my items directly in there as well. I don't do it in two different places. I do it in one. So that was a very messy kind of condensed version of how I'm using all of these multitudes of options in my everyday carry to just help me move through my life at this point in time while my anxiety levels are high. I've never actually done like a sit down plan with me on my channel. Maybe I'll do that for September, and I can sort of go through from start to finish how I would at least set this up, my 10-day sticky note in particular. That's all I have for this video. Until my next one, take care and be well.